Carbolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Carbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Pro Physique Code. We've got an exciting one today. We're going to do a Q&A. We're going to cover a bunch of topics, which you'll probably know some of them by the title. But we wanted to kick off today's episode with a question. Lexi, fire away.
All right, so our one and only question we have for you guys today that we want you to comment below with if you're listening on YouTube is, if you could, let's see, how do I want to phrase this best? If you could essentially swap physiques with any athlete out there, any division, bikini, fit model, wellness figure, who would it be? I feel like we all have that athlete that maybe they're not like, maybe it's not Miss Olympia, but just somebody you really like their physique and you would kill to look the way they look.
Yeah. And if there's not somebody you want to swap with, who just has your current favorite physique? Who do you love to see the most? Yeah. Yeah. Let's do ours.
Okay. Ooh. Let me think for a sec.
I did speaking of favorite physiques, because I'm sure some women will say Janet Leigh. I did speak to her, and she agreed to come on the podcast, so I just got to arrange a time.
Yay. Okay. Yay. Honestly, yeah, she's a really good one. But you know what? I think for me personally, when I think about it, I really love like Ashley Kaltwasser. I've seen a lot of like pictures of her when she's just in like, I don't know, sweats, and she's got the best glutes, like in clothing. I know that sounds weird, probably not weird to our listeners, but like if you've ever been around her and you've seen her glutes just in like leggings or jeans or whatever, like she's just got the best glutes in clothing. Like I don't know. I think she'd probably be my person, because I like her physique on stage, but I also like it off stage. And I think that's important. You know, like there are some people that look really cool on stage, but I'm like, I don't think that's the body I'd want to walk around with all the time. But I like Ashley Katie's look. I love Janet too, though.
I would probably say Ryan Terry. I think it is.
Yeah, you know, honestly, I feel like Ryan Terry, you put him in a button-up shirt and some trousers, and he just looks like he's in shape. I know he's gotten bigger.
Good. He just looks good.
Yeah.
And he's not overly big. He just flows well. And I'm a good bit taller than he is, too, so that would be a little bit different. But I think his physique flows very well. And I also think it fits the division. And I think that it's, weirdly enough, considering he is the best, I think it is also the most achievable as well.
Yeah,
in a weird
the thing
way.
about him is like you don't look at him and think anything's freaky. Everything's in proportion. Yep. Everything fits together. Whereas like Corey Morris is so freaky looking that it's impressive, but his arms and his waist stand out, and his chest and his back don't kind of hold up to those things. But it's like I still love when I see Corey Morris on stage. I'm like, damn, I know, right? That is a mutant of a human being. For me, it's always been Andrew Jacked ever since I saw him compete first time. Yeah. When he walked out on the stage, I just remember being like, that's literally how I would draw the perfect human. Like every muscle in his body is separated. It's symmetrical. He's a tall guy, but he's not, for an open bodybuilder, he doesn't look bloated or messy. He just is, to me, he's Mr. Olympia. I know he hasn't won, or he's probably not going to win, but to me, if I was a judge, I'd be like, that's what we should all aspire to.
Yeah. If it was going to be who I wanted to walk around a day-to-day basis look like, it would probably be Ryan. But if it was the most impressive, it's Andrew by a long shot. He's I think he has some gaps he needs to fill in because he is tall. I mean, he's like 6'2". So I remember the first time I met him, I was like, oh, cool. This is what I would look like at 300 pounds peeled.
He's one of the few guys that you see him at a bodybuilding show in a t-shirt, and he still looks like massive. Like you see some of the open guys at the day before the show, and you're like, oh, they don't look big. And then obviously they're huge. He looks huge all the time. In anything, in a t-shirt and sweatpants. Like Yeah.
I
So that'd
remember,
be
I
mine. So
remember
yeah,
Nick
let us
told
know
me that.
below. You know, maybe you have two answers. Who would you want to be, and then who's your? Because I was also thinking like Keon Pearson. I love people that have like
Yeah,
freaky proportions and balance.
Mhm.
Um,
Keon has one of the freakiest
I can't
structures.
wait for him to do open because if he like, you know, if you look at the history with Hadi and Derek coming from 212 and winning the Olympia, I think he's
Yeah.
the next guy to do that.
I think the big difference with that is they were really struggling to get the weight cap, and Keon's not really close to the weight cap. So I think
Right.
that's the significant difference. Well, at least he
Yeah,
hasn't
that's
been in the past.
it'll be interesting to see because you look at somebody like Urs, who clearly was meant for open and was just kind of holding himself back. And I mean, I think he could be top 10 at the Olympia this year. He looks
He will
really
be top
good.
10. He will
Yeah.
be top 10. I think he could be fighting for like top 7 or 8 too,
Yeah, if some one of
realistically.
those guys is off and he's bringing it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Top
So,
top
all right.
five is pretty locked in, but outside of that, I feel it's
Yep. Oh,
gonna
and
be
I
a
do
lot
want
of
to give
people
one
fighting for
final
it.
reminder because when this podcast comes out, we'll be a couple days out from our event in San Diego. There are still a couple spots, so if you want to come train with the three of us, Lana Dunbar, Brett Contreras, and an awesome group of people in San Diego, it's a whole weekend event. Go to prophysique.com/events for the Command the Stage, focusing on female competitors. Okay. All right. So, and then don't message me on Monday saying, when's the next event?
Oh my gosh, I know. You know what's funny is I now understand like teachers growing up and even professors. You know, we all had those ones that were like maybe a little passive when somebody would ask a question, right? It was like in the syllabus or something they had already discussed. But like, I understand why they are that way now because, you know, I love some people, but there's sometimes where I'll post something like so many different times and I'll still get people that ask like, that question and I'm like I try not to be passive when I answer, but it's like it's funny how some people just you have to put things out there like 10 to 15 times for it to sometimes catch on.
At
Right.
least.
Yep. Well, who wants to start our Q&A off?
Yeah, I'll start it off. I got a good one.
Okay, go for it.
When do you start including refeeds in a prep?
That is a great question. I feel like I've been getting that a lot just from my own competitors too, like first timers. I know for me personally, and I know we've talked a little bit about this in prior podcasts, because I think Paul, you'll probably have a similar answer. Like most of the time, we're not starting prep with refeeds. It's going to be, I would say, in that second half at the earliest, like when the physique starts to get a bit more depleted, when carbs are getting lower, when recovery and biofeedback is starting to slow down. So we're talking like digestion is starting to slow down, inflammation is starting to drive up. That's usually when I kind of look to start adding in refeeds. And usually, not all the time, but usually I'll start with one refeed. And then eventually, the deeper we get into prep, the more depleted we get, I'll add in the second like consecutive refeed.
I think it depends on what our definition of a refeed is as well. With that, I typically start a little bit different to where I'll have typically like 2 higher days during the week and then 5 like low days is typically how I'll do it. And I'll more structure it around like their heavy lower body training days, just so they have a little bit more fuel to be able to press on that day along with it. But I look at like the calories over a week or the carbs over a week, right? And kind of justify it that way. I also find that it helps people make a little bit more progress because when they have like 4 or 5 low days in a row, they'll see some numbers move. And then when they get a little food and it'll be maybe a little depleted, a little more food in their system, they feel a little bit better. Also gives them something to look forward to a little bit along with that. But it's not a crazy drastic difference either. Then, I mean, we're talking maybe like, 50 carbs difference on a day. It's nothing crazy with that. But, it depends, right? I'll kind of do that until we aren't making progress and I'll kind of pull those days out for a few weeks until we get to where we need to go. Then maybe add a day or two back in.
I mean, you guys are, I think we probably all have this conversation many times. So, yeah, I typically will not start with a refeed unless someone's already very lean. You know, if I'm starting a prep, like let's say I have a client who came out of a show and reversed and stayed within a few pounds of stage weight, but we got her carbs up to say like 200 or something, and she's maintaining a few pounds over. as soon as I cut her calories because she's so lean, I'm going to include refeed days.
Yeah.
But a typical, like if you're not anywhere near stage weight, you don't need refeeds in my
No.
experience. And the other thing I look for is the carbs are below, like I've just noticed, you just notice data trends over time. When carbs get below, 10 times your body weight. So if you're 130 pounds and you're below 130 carbs a day, I think most people are going to be burning through that pretty consistently, and that boost every now and then is going to help them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, going back really quickly to your point, Evan, about what is a refeed, defining that term, because I've heard different coaches or different athletes say like, "Oh, I'm getting a refeed meal," where it's like it's just a burger and fries.
Like a free meal. Yeah.
Right, right. So yeah, I think like when we're talking about refeeds as coaches, we're more so talking about we're giving the athletes specific numbers, and mainly like protein and fat may stay very similar, but it's the carbs that are coming up. So that's what I would say, classify as like a true refeed day.
Yeah. And when
Yeah.
I talk about refeeds too, I mainly focus it on like training performance and trying to keep training performance high. And the calories may not even be drastically different between their higher and lower days with it, because I may pull their protein down and pull their fats down a little bit and raise their carbs on those days. So, calorically, it's probably not, well, I know it's not drastically different. We're talking, pretty minor on that, but the makeup of those calories could be a little bit different.
Yeah.
But also,
All right.
it's biofeedback too. It's when is it needed, right? If your energy's in the toilet, look, if your hunger's high and your energy's high, tough shit. You don't need it. You
Yeah,
know.
I got a girl, she's competing in 5 weeks. She looks really good. I sent you her pictures.
Hmm.
And we really delayed adding refeeds because she was, I believe in momentum strongly. And she was just
Yep.
like, no, coach, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. And then when I added in the refeed, she got so excited because she saw her muscles fill out and she's like,
Yep.
oh, this is what I look like. So now I have her send me her updates after her refeed day because,
Yep.
and this leads into another question I have coming up, but if you're deep into prep and you're not getting refeeds, you're going to look like shit most of the time. And that can start to mess with you mentally. So it's not just, there is a benefit to training, but there's also a benefit to your psychology.
For sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, go ahead, Alexis. Flexus.
Alexa. Okay, so this is a quick question, but I think this is a good one. Okay. Hi, Lexi. Is there a certain ab exercise you do to make your core look like that? Most women competitors have abs that look the same, and when I do abs, they look more like a chiseled six pack. So this was actually a DM I got, but I think it was a good question to kind of bring up. Because I don't think I mean, I don't think what a lot of people don't realize is that when it comes to the core on stage for most competitors, a lot of competitors aren't doing like weighted ab work or oblique work, right? A lot of competitors are going to be doing like good core control exercises. And sorry, I don't know if that's my email. Let me shut that off if it is. But a lot of competitors are going to be doing like body weight ab exercises that really target that deep core wall, as opposed to like if you're somebody who feels like you get blockiness in your abs, maybe scale away from doing any weighted ab work. And I think part of it too is genetics at the end of the day. I mean, not everybody has the same looking abs when they get super lean. Some people have a little bit more of that washboard effect. Some people don't, right? So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's genetics to begin with, especially when it comes to females. Abs and muscle. And if you want the muscle to be deeper, if you want the lines to be deeper, if you want it to show more, then you need to train it like a muscle, right? Now, if you want core control, things like vacuums, can be extremely helpful for that. Things like leg raises or knee raises can be really, really good for that. But if you're wanting to build up a more like separated, blocky look in your abs, and look, to a certain extent, it can look good on stage. It can, as long as it's not over the top with it. Then some weighted abs can be beneficial with that. My number one rule with core work is like do not do oblique work. That is my number one thing because, again, your obliques are a muscle, and if you want that muscle to be bigger, aka your obliques, it's going to make your waist wider. So that's my big rule: is just stay away from any of that stuff.
Yeah, abs are, I don't know, I consider them a muscle that you can hit pretty minimally and get good results from. And I've started including 1 or 2 sets on abs every time I train, and I like the results so much on myself, I started putting it on my client programs and they
Mhm.
like it. So instead of going and doing like, two different exercises, 8 or 10 reps, no, I literally in the middle of my workout or at the end of my workout will go over to either the hanging leg raise, the decline sit up, or, I even like the ab machines, the crunch machines,
Yeah.
with a good amount of weight on those. And I'll just do like one set to failure and it just keeps everything engaged.
Mhm.
But again, I think a lot of it comes down to your history. And Evan, you and I played sports our whole lives. And so I've always had abs because that
Yeah.
was a part of running, jumping, sprinting. I never, and what's funny is like we used to do like sit-ups for like warm-ups. I remember like, every day warm-ups at baseball and basketball. We're always doing sit-ups. I don't know, so it's a connective muscle that combines the upper and lower body. You can't perform if you can't use your core in sports. So if you played sports, I've got some athletes that have really developed cores that you're like, that might not be good for the bikini division, or the fit model
Yeah.
division.
Yeah, athletes growing up for sure. Because I know that was one thing. Like I was a gymnast from the age of 7, and I always had like a six pack when I got into competitive gymnastics. But we did all body weight, like ab work for the most part. Honestly, my favorite thing to do right now is I love. Usually, I'll do this every time, like post workout. Sometimes not on lower body days, but I like to do planking on elbows to failure. I feel like that's a really good like deep core exercise. It's not weighted, so that's my favorite. But I think most competitors out there are doing a lot less ab work than most people think too. Because it's like I've
Yeah.
had athletes come to me before and tell me they'll have like maybe not a whole day dedicated to abs, but it'll be like a big part of one of their workouts. And I mean, I would say most competitors are hitting abs a little bit, maybe post workout a couple times a week, but you guys would be surprised by probably how little
How
direct
little.
work, yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of top level athletes are doing.
I mean, to be completely honest, I think I went like 3 years without doing any core work.
Yeah. Well, I
And my core looks good on stage. Like it's I have deep separated abs and um but that's again, I think it's from playing sports, right? It's from playing sports. It's in sprinting and power movements and things like that are going to build up that core with it.
Oh, I see the baby. I see your baby cat. He's on your couch, Evan. You better watch
Is
him.
he? Oh, yeah, he's snoozing.
Oh, all right. I don't know. I thought he wasn't allowed on the couch because he's a bad boy.
Oh no, there's a cover on it. He's snoozing.
all right, Evan, do you have a good question?
Yeah, I got a bunch of good questions actually here. Um, I don't know if we've touched on this one or not yet, and I think this is a very general, might be a little bit tough to answer, but I think it's a good one. Is there a certain way that we measure how little or how much to carb up an athlete
It's such a
before a
good
show?
question because until recently, I would have said it's all based on my feel on how much they can handle. But I was looking over. I made a presentation on peaking on Peak Week. I don't know if you guys watched that on it's actually on the same page as this podcast is posted. I just kept getting asked about it, and so I actually did some research into glycogen and how much the body can hold, because you hear about these theories like rapid backloading that was introduced for endurance athletes, where they would deplete their glycogen stores,
Yep,
and
I've done that.
the theory was that they could actually
Super
hold
compensate.
more glycogen because of supercompensation, right? And so
Mhm.
for someone that's doing an endurance sport like a marathon or something where they're going for 4 or 5, 6 hours, they can actually benefit from that. Well, some bodybuilders picked up on that and tried it as well. And, you know, I've tried it. I've never had success with it. And I
Yeah,
think mostly that's because of the digestive system. Like,
yeah,
that's great that you can handle 1,000 grams of carbs, but does your body process that food efficiently and get it to the muscles, or do you just mess up? So what I have found, what the research clearly showed was it's between 4 and 5 grams of carbohydrates per pound of lean body mass. And when I started looking at my peak week plans, if I look at Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, when I really start ramping up the carbs with the linear load, it's pretty damn close. It's
yeah.
pretty close. So for Evan, for you, let's just say you have 200 pounds of lean body mass. That's between 800 and 1,000 grams of carbs that you would need. I bet if we look at your last peak week, you were somewhere in that range on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? When you
Yeah, I'm in
stop
that range.
depleting and you start filling.
I'm usually around like 5 to 700 normally rolling into it. Yeah.
Between 3 days,
Yeah.
Okay, so I would think you would be
No,
close to
daily.
500 on Friday alone.
Yeah, no, daily with that. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're at 500 3 days in a row, that's 1500.
Hmm.
That's over that thousand. Now you're still burning through some as you train and as you go throughout your day, but yeah, so that's kind of what I've been looking at data wise, Lexi. Um, do you have a formula or are you just kind of going based on how the refeeds go and stuff?
Yeah, I don't really have a formula. I go based off of the refeeds and, and also I like to kind of take into account too, this is why I love working with athletes before just jumping into a prep, but having the data too of like how high did their food get in their off season. Like some people get their carbs way higher than others. And so sometimes I'll use that data as well, along with just the data I collect throughout prep. And, I'll be honest, I think there's a little bit of a psychological side of it too, because I'm sure we've all had those girls that are a little bit more afraid of like eating, and they can probably eat more than they give themselves credit for. But, I never want to put an athlete in a position where going into their show, I'm telling them to eat so much to the point where like they're psychologically stressing themselves out and their cortisol's up because that's not good either. So I do think psychology plays a little bit of a role too.
That's
Yeah.
why I love the linear load with
Mhm.
the very predictable nature of walking the food up because if you tell somebody you're going to have 250 carbs on the Friday before the show when they've only been having 80 carbs, they'll look at you like you have three heads.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
if you have 100 on Monday, 125 on Tuesday, 150 on Wednesday, 175 on Thursday, and they're down a pound, and you're like, "Hey, do 250," they're like, "Huh, okay."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there that because the way I used to get peaked from Lane was Monday would be like an incredibly high day, 400 or 500 grams of carbs. He would taper me down and
Yeah.
then fill me back out on Friday. And I always looked good. I won a lot of shows, but I always looked better on like Tuesday, Wednesday than I did on show day. And so it was hard to replicate that filling up process. So yeah, that's the formula. I mean, and my favorite thing to do like is a mock peak week because there's two benefits to a mock peak week. One, you get to see how the athlete looks filled out. Two, after you've linearly loaded them and pulled their cardio out, if you go back to the grind, they're going to get an incredible response. And
Yep.
so it's kind of like a double whammy because at the end of prep, you can't just grind somebody. You've got to give them recovery. And so if you disguise it as a mock peak, but then go, hey, all right, now we're going to go back to like 70 carbs and 2 hours of cardio, they're like, whatever, I feel great.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I always like to also like when it comes to the linear loading on peak week, I would always like to err on the side of being a little bit more conservative when I give them the initial plan. So like when I
Mhm.
send them over the peak week plan, I try to keep it a little bit more conservative so that we have room to build if needed. I'd much rather approach it that way as opposed to give them some lofty carb goal and then have to and for that to be too much and then have to scale back for a couple days. So I always
Yeah.
like to be conservative and then that's why we have the daily check-ins. That way, if we need to make adjustments or add more food in at the tail end of the week, we absolutely can.
Yeah, I always start conservative, number one, because I think there's a psychological play into it. Because if you have their carbs at like say like 195, 225, 250, something the last few days, and then we don't need that amount, I feel that psychologically they feel like they're doing something wrong or that they're not in a good place like I thought they would be. So I definitely start on the lower side of things. How I approach it specifically is dependent on the person. What I've been doing over the last year or so is if the athlete has a harder time controlling their core at times, which has happens with like so my male and female athletes, then I will pull things up a little bit more on like a Wednesday, Thursday heavier, and then pull back food on Friday to give their digestion a little bit more of a break to allow them to come in a little bit tighter. They're still fully loaded, right? But that one back off day I think can help keep their core tighter, especially for some of like my classic physique guys that like my client Nate, who's really, really, really super good natural bodybuilder. He takes a lot of food to fill out. And sometimes when he goes in transitions, his core can kind of blow out and come back in. And judges see that. They see that and making sure that's a thing. Another way that I do it is based off data points, right? I have my athletes. I know of them. Some of them like it. Some of them probably fucking hate it. But I have them check in. twice a day, and it's normally an hour before their final meal. And I track their weight first thing in the morning, hour before their final meal, and then before bed. And then I can see their rate of loss overnight, and I can see these trends build throughout the week. And if their weight, if I start feeding out more and their weight just shoots up through the roof, okay, we probably are a little bit too much here, and I'll back some things down after that. There should be some pretty consistent as far as the weight is going, as far and when you're feeding someone up into a show, unless they're overly depleted with it. That's typically kind of how I do it. But the specifics on about that for each is different for each athlete. And the more you work with somebody, the more you learn them, and you know what works best for them too. So it's experience with the individual too.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, we're back to you.
Oh,
Yeah, I got so many. I'm actually excited about some of these. I feel like these are going to be like the title of the podcast is going to be just based on the questions I got. One of these. What makes an athlete impressive? Like what makes a top athlete physique wise?
Oh, physique wise. Okay. I mean, I guess it depends on the division, right?
Listen, there's one thing. If you got this, you got a huge head start.
huge upper glute.
Well,
What did
now
you
you're
say?
talking about one division, but there's
Okay.
one thing that every division, if you have this, yeah. If you've
Bubbling
got
around
that
this.
tiny waist, good Lord,
Yeah.
like help you, man. Like that is just,
It it is, yeah. But it almost like I almost feel like too, there is such thing as having too freaky of a small waist to the point where it just looks a little bizarre, like an out of proportion on stage. But I feel like having a very small waist is definitely very helpful genetically. And not for nothing. I mean, some people just have, I guess this is more specific towards bikini and even fit model, but like some females just genetically have better glute insertions than others, right?
oh yeah.
And I think that's
Well,
something that makes an athlete very impressive. Like I've had athletes before that they haven't even really trained glutes that hard in their, in their history, and they just genetically have this beautiful structure with their glutes, where we just have to add a little bit more muscle, but like the insertions are amazing. And I mean, that's impressive too.
yeah, the
Uh,
almond, I call it the almond glutes, where the tie-in for the glute comes. That's another one that like you either got it or you don't.
Right.
yep, you
Yeah.
do. There's not a lot you can do for that,
Wide
unfortunately.
clavicles is another one that
Yeah,
is a
that's my
must
thing.
for men. I mean, even to a degree, women having this from this tip to tip being wide is you can even get away with a kind of a wide waist if you have wide
Yep.
shoulders.
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
trying to think of the classic physique guy who's super wide, but he has kind of wide set hips. Is it Ramon Dino? No, he has a tiny waist.
Mm-mm.
Maybe Logan Franklin. Maybe Logan.
Logan
Yeah,
has very wide hips,
yeah, but he's
and
also
he's
wide
wide up
shoulder.
top.
Yeah,
He has
but when he
very wide
stands
hips.
next to the top classic physique guys, that's where he kind of loses
He
ground
gets
because
ex
in that front relaxed, you just can't hide that.
he gets exposed.
Um,
Yep.
so yeah, like and the same thing with the thing about bikini is you're allowed to twist and pose in such a
Hmm.
way and in fit model, you're allowed to twist and pose in a way where like having a wide waist is not going to ruin your physique if you've got good wide shoulders. So I think wide shoulders is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Oh, go for it. I'm sorry.
for me specifically, I think it varies between division. I think wide shoulders, wide clavicles, which you cannot do anything about. You can add more delts, but you cannot change your skeleton. You can't change that. So for almost all divisions, wide clavicles, they call them like swimmer shoulders almost, right? Like they're
Mhm.
just wide shoulders. A small waist, and for bikini, narrow hips. Um, I don't think wide hips, when you get in the bikini front pose, it's harder to create that shape. But if you're talking about fit model, I think the wider shoulders, the narrow waist, and a little bit wider hips creates more of a glute pop on that front stallion pose. So I think structurally, that's the way I would go on just a general structure basis. And because it allows you, especially to get in those poses and to be able to create. Also, too, um, a the torso length based on your leg length will
Mm,
absolutely change the flow of your physique 100% of the time.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that short torso
Short torso
looks
is
looks
craziness.
stunning. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, but I will tell you, I have a lot of girls that, and I guess I kind of have one as well, like have a longer torso.
Mhm.
And there's definitely some things you can do with the fit of your suit, pulling up
Mhm.
the suit bottom a
Yeah,
little bit higher. Like
that's
I know with my girls, honestly, most of them nowadays, not even just the ones with like long torsos, but I'll usually have them purchase the modest front bottoms from Angel Competition Bikinis, where it goes up a little bit taller in the front. And
makes a massive difference.
it does. And even with that, what I had to do for my show is I had that fit and I was even still having to just pull up the front of my suit bottom a
Yep.
little bit higher on my torso just because it created the illusion of a shorter torso. Paul, are you recording right now?
Yeah, I'm getting this.
He's recording this for Instagram, but that is definitely something you can do. So if you hear like that long torsos are a bad thing for competitors and that's what you have, don't freak out because there are little things you can do with the suit fit that help with that and even posing, right? But that it is crazy what a big difference like just pulling up suit bottoms in the front can make for somebody with
Crazy.
a long torso. I had a posing session with a client last week and I told her before we even started, I'm like, pull up your bottoms and like she looked like a completely different person. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. I've had a conversation with one of my athletes a few times with that. I'm like, we just do need different bottoms. Like she has a longer torso and it changes the shape. Yeah. And don't let that get in your head. Like Laura Lee has a long torso and short legs and she's Miss Olympia. So like, you can't like just define it, right? Um, it's, it's a total package, it's a total look with it. It's glute insertions, all that stuff matters. But if we're talking about generally with it, like what's going to be like typically looked at as the most impressive with bikini, that's typically going to be a little bit shorter torso, wider shoulders, and a little bit narrow in the hips. That's typically going to be able to contort and create that shape a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that actually plays off one of the questions I have, which is like, what defines good and bad genetics for sports? So that kind of answers that question along with it.
I feel like
Yeah.
the only one we didn't mention, Evan, that I think would imply genetics would be, and this is something that it's a little harder to define until someone's been training, but just like muscle fiber type,
Yeah,
muscle density, which we don't think of as a natural thing, but it is. Like there are people that are just extremely gifted with muscle density.
and
Yeah.
bubbliness.
Or just even the rate at which they put on the muscle, you know, some people put it on a lot quicker than others. So
I do find it funny. Whenever I work with females or get on consultations with girls, I say typically girls fall into one of two categories here. They're either great with the presentation, they are just like they love the glam, all that stuff, and they get up there and they own the stage, but most of them don't have quite enough muscle. And then you have the other side of things to where they have a lot of muscle and their shape is really good, but it's more difficult to get them the nice things around the edges of the presentation. And I think it's the reason for that is pretty simple. It's like either you kind of grew up a girly girl and you didn't train as much and you weren't quite as athletic, or you grew up a more athletic girl, right?
yeah.
And didn't take part in as much of the girly girl stuff with that. But if you get both of them in a newer competitor, you got someone that's just going to walk in and crush it off the
Yeah,
bat.
no, I could agree to that a little bit. Yeah, there are some people that it's like they have these crazy impressive physiques, muscularity, but they're so like they struggle with the gracefulness, right?
Yes, they're
And
very
that's
stiff.
hard. Like if you weren't maybe an athlete growing up who did gymnastics, cheer, dance, like, and I'm not saying you always have to come from that background to be graceful, but I feel like gracefulness is a learned skill and it takes a very long time to learn it. And I've had so many clients that I've had to work really hard with over like years to just get them to be loose and graceful and not so choppy. So
I
And
mean,
I think that confidence in that walk and learning that bikini walk, if you can get that walk, everything else just falls into place so much easier.
yeah, so my favorite is always Daraja because you would watch her and you would think like she definitely had a background in something. She did not. She played tennis growing up, and I've spent a lot of time with her, and she is a klutz. Like she literally walks into things, trips
yeah,
over her own feet. But when she's on stage, it looks like she was meant to be up there. And, she was one of my first clients that really explained to me how much effort she put into her stage presence, literally pouring over hours of content, copying people, learning, filming herself, because you can mimic somebody else's posing to a degree, but at a certain point, you've got to get good enough at it that you can actually just free flow and figure out what works best for you. And that's only through trial and error. And that means not just walking in, hitting your front pose and back pose and being done for the day.
Yeah.
you've got to put the effort in for, Lana's another great example right now. And to me, she's the top posing coach right now out there. She puts so much effort into her own stuff. She's able to translate it to her athletes or her clients that she's helping in prep because she's done the work of understanding, oh, this is how this feels. This is how this looks. Let's experiment with all this. So, yeah. Is it back to me or
I think we
was
went
it
out of
you?
You
order.
just went.
I have a good
It's
one really
Lexace.
Okay.
quick,
Yeah.
or this one's kind of quick, maybe, I don't know. But the difference, so this person asked, what is the difference between fit model and natural bikini? So I thought that was kind of a good question because do you guys remember? I don't know if we,
Well, let me give the answer here, Lexi. You guys can agree or disagree with me. The difference between natural bikini and fit model is natural bikini is still the bikini standard. So you can be a little bigger, a little more muscular, a little harder. And if you think that natural bikini competitors can't be big and lean and hard, you are mistaken. Okay? Daraja, Lana. Okay. The difference is no girls are staying natural anymore, right? That's really the difference. But Lana is going to be at the Olympia very big, very lean, very dense, and still natural. So like I think that's the difference is that with Fit Model, they don't want the girls getting as hard. But that's it to me. Just because it's natural doesn't mean the standard changes for them. They can be as big and as hard. Um, and
I think,
I've got Christina and Jessica. They're both going to be doing Ben Weeder. I'm not trying to bring them in softer.
No.
yeah, I think, no, I think you nailed that, Paul. I mean, a great example is we were all at the Pittsburgh Pro this year and like looking at let's just say the overall fit model winner there compared to, I don't know her name, but the girl in the green that won the overall bikini
Mhm.
title. I mean, both were
She
now,
would have won the overall bikini title at every NPC show this year. She
yeah.
was phenomenal.
I think it's just, I mean, I think it's different if this person is maybe asking what's the difference between like at an amateur level, like regional natural bikini show, that look may be a little bit different, and a little bit more comparable to fit model. But if we're talking like a good natural bikini competitor who has the potential to turn pro or who's pro, like you nailed it, Paul. There's truly no difference. It's probably just that those natural bikini competitors, they've either a spent a lot of time in the gym over the past 10 plus years or genetics, that really plays a role there too.
Yeah, I'll bring up two examples. I have one natural bikini girl that we've done 3 shows. She's won her class every time, won an overall. She won her class, the Rising Phoenix. Um, she is peeled in her glutes, and her glutes are full. She's just genetically blessed, and she works hard, and her glutes are full. Like she does not look like a natural competitor. She looks like she has been taking stuff for a while, right? Um, Now she's not quite as big as some of the other girls are, but that density and that fullness is there. And I'll bring it back to the natural bodybuilding world. I have a few girls during the Yorton Cup, which is like the OCB's Olympia, right? I can tell you the girl that wins that Yorton Cup in bikini every year, that girl is hard and dense and peeled. Like she could go step on a pro stage in the IFBB and place quite well. The girl I have that's will have a shot. She's natural. She's gonna be doing the bin weeder this year. That girl is dense and hard and separated. And
Yeah.
it does the standard doesn't change along
No.
with that.
I
It's
think
just if
the difference is going to be if you want to stay natural and you want to go to the Olympia, you now have a route. Whereas I
you
think
have a route.
that was basically disappearing. Right now,
Yeah.
really the only way for a natural to go to the Olympia. And listen, I used to love to be like, you can be natural and go to the Olympia. If you're not winning the Ben Weeder,
Yeah, I feel like,
listen, and I don't want to say never because there's a girl out there that can do it,
Hmm?
but she's like I think Jessica could do it in time, but and maybe even Christina because she's a baby still and she's got crazy genetics. But it's rare, dude. It's
It
rare.
is so rare. I mean, like my ex Erin, she made it to Olympia, right? Multiple times, but she is one of those complete genetic freaks. Like
I mean, dude, anyone listening to this podcast, if you don't know how freaky Aaron
freak.
Stern is,
yeah.
like
Well,
it's impossible to comprehend that she went from an amateur and we've done podcasts. We've talked with her. She went from an amateur to a little show in Lakeland where she dyed her own suit
To
with
winning
press-on
nationals.
nails. Went to nationals, won the overall there, and wasn't her pro debut the Arnold, and she got second? Am I
No,
mistaken?
I think she got like sixth at her pro debut, and then she got
Okay.
like her second show. I think was Arnold. She got second.
And
Yeah,
maybe her
like
first
it's.
Olympia, she got second, or just like
I can't
crazy
remember.
meteoric
Yeah,
rise. Yeah, so
and she
that's
was
out
like
there.
she was training at like her dad's like total home gym during that
Has
process
there
too.
been anybody recently like so last not last year, was it last year? 2023, I had Nade at the Olympia and she turned pro in April.
Yeah,
Has there, but she didn't make a dent at the Olympia. Has there been anybody that's recently in the last 2 years that's gone from like amateur to a pro that's made a name?
the only thing I can think of was Allie that did it, but she had been competing for a while
No,
before
but
that.
bro, I coached her since 2017. Like she's been
Yeah, I
around.
mean, yeah, she's been around, but
Just
I'm saying like from
she just
pro to
finally put on the size. She
yeah,
always had the shape.
I can't think of any like bikini competitors off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mm-mm.
Yeah, it's and I mean in figure that'll never happen again unless
Well,
now we saw a wellness girl, Evan, the other day that we were like, okay,
Ooh.
I was
I don't know
thinking
where
that
she's been
too.
hiding, but that girl was in true novice, and we're like, okay, who lied to her?
Yeah.
Well, I also,
The fact they put that girl in True Novice was
why not though?
hilarious
If
to
it was
me.
her first show,
No, hey,
why
listen,
not?
listen, fair game, yeah, of course.
I
Yeah,
mean, can you imagine though, walking into that, never have competed before, seeing this
I
girl
know.
in your True Novice class?
I
Like
know. I
this
know.
this girl will be an Olympian her first year easily.
Yeah.
Like easily. I mean,
Well,
I think she's a top 10 Olympian probably right now, and she's winning a novice
Crazy.
overall.
I before I
It's
put her that high,
baffling.
I have to see her next to everybody because she was really tall.
Yeah, she's
Uh,
like 5'6". Yeah.
yeah, and like,
yeah.
Wow, that was impressive though.
yeah, I was looking around like, what is this a guest posing? What's happening right now?
Well, it was funny. They stopped the show where Janet gave the award for like the
Most
woman with the most
promising?
potential,
Yeah,
and I was like, "Geez, wonder who this is going to be."
yeah.
That's so funny.
Was
That
known.
makes me think too, this is not really in the realm of the question, but so this past weekend, I had a client. She competed for the first time in Australia. And so Saturday night, I set my alarm for like 1:30 because I watched the live stream. And it was like an hour and a half. And they in Australia have some damn impressive physiques on stage. Like I'm not knocking the US competitors, but I think part of it is in Australia with this like the show circuit, they don't have as many opportunities to compete. So they get a lot more like girls that get on stage that are well rested and like just really good quality physiques. But holy crap, like I just have to give a little shout out there. I don't know if we have any people that live or that listen from Australia, but
Oh
they
yeah,
are
we do. I got my client Emma is doing the NPC. Well, it's their version of nationals this weekend.
oh, this weekend, yeah, yeah. But oh my gosh, and honestly, like I have to say too. Okay, I watched. I set my alarm at 1:30 a.m. and then I think that it was finished. They finished bikini by 3, so it was like an hour and a half. And the way that they ran that show was so smoothly. Like they brought them all out. They did comparisons first, then they all went straight into their individuals, and literally right after that, straight into awards. Like it
So
was
this
just.
is called Lexi. This is called block formatting for a show. It's how I used to run my show in
I
Tampa.
love it. I love
And
it.
here's the beauty of it. I would say figure you're on from 9 to 10:30. 10:30 to 12 is men's physique. 12 to 1:30 is bodybuilding, right? And so you tell your friends and family, my show is from 9 to 10:30. Guess what happened when I did it this way? First of all, the only people backstage at a given time are the class that you're worried about. There's no confusion. You don't even let people backstage until you allow them back there to start getting ready for stage. Second of all, I filled up, sold out the auditorium 4 times that day. I sold 4 times as many tickets because people want to come, and I had one ticket, one price. And I've told a couple of the NPC people about this, and Sandy Williamson is actually doing this. She does these type of block formats. It's amazing. And guess who else is really happy? The
Yeah,
judges.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and for me as a coach too, like I would have done whatever I needed to do, but it was nice too because like I knew exactly since I had to set my alarm that
So
at that
good.
weird time, like it made it nice because I knew, okay, I'm gonna set my alarm and literally set my alarm and like they were getting
Yeah.
ready to start and I was chatting with my client. So it was, I don't know, I just thought of that when we were talking about impressive physiques because they've got, I mean, there was a girl and I want to say it was class A bikini, and I have a feeling she will probably turn pro this week. Like she was one of those I could see doing well on the pro stage, like immediately, but very
Australia is a cool place because they do have seasons still because their population's not so dense that they can have year-round shows. But I think it's really good for the athletes to do a spring and a fall versus like year-round. And
Yeah.
then, if you're not good enough in the spring, don't do the fall. Come wait until the next spring. Yeah, I'm actually excited for Emma because she did the regional show a week ago, and
okay.
she was told she was too lean, and she would not have been lean enough for Fit Model here. So we're just filling her back out, and yeah,
Interesting.
so we'll see.
Interesting.
We're just gonna fill her up. So it's always about learning what they're gonna reward, and they rewarded really soft for Fit Model, really soft.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Who's got a
I
question?
got this. I got this one on deck, and I've been waiting for this one because this is a
Okay.
good question.
Mhm.
I feel like I look worse, flat, soft, and stringy. Is this normal before getting on stage? This young lady also asked at 4 to 6 weeks out, why is fat loss slow? So I know she's about 4 to 6 weeks out.
Oh, well,
Didn't we do a video on the 6 week out freak out?
no, I call it, so my term is the 3 week out freak out. So
Oh,
yes,
okay.
we did a whole episode about this for the person that asked. Go back. I think it's probably like a year ago. We could probably do another one over it. But yeah,
We
I
could
feel
call it the month out freak out or something.
yeah, because you know what? This is totally the time where, and I've had this discussion a lot recently with a lot of my first time athletes that are right around that like 3 week out mark. And that just tends to be the time where competitors really get in their head. And mainly it's because, yeah, you are depleted. Your muscles don't have a lot of pop to them. You almost kind of feel soft, kind of watery, right? And then that gets in your head, making you feel like, oh my God, am I backtracking? I don't have any muscle. Should I even be doing this? But I always like to tell my competitors, like I like to use the term, you're gonna look worse before you look better. But like you have to kind of go through that phase of that 4 week out, 3 week out, sometimes even 2 week out mark where you're like just looking kind of tiny and not a lot of pop to the muscles. But that's not a bad thing because once those carbs start to saturate your system in peak week, you'll be able to fill out, and that'll be when you look your best.
Yeah.
Contest prep is like a breast augmentation. It's going to look really bad before it looks really good.
That is the best analogy. I've never thought of that, Paul, because oh my gosh, that reminds me when I got mine done that I went in the next morning for my like morning after post-op appointment, and my surgeon was like, "Oh my gosh, it looks perfect." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, no." Like it was weird.
No.
I was like, "What? You think this looks good?" And he was like, "Don't you worry. They'll drop. They'll look better." But that is the best analogy. I've never thought never thought about that.
Yeah.
So to this person, we just talked about it, Evan, refeeds. Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
That's when
you're
it can be
gonna
really
look.
beneficial.
It's if you can't handle looking like crap in prep, you will not survive it. The psychology of seeing yourself look worse, because there is a phase of prep where you look like you've lost muscle and not lost body fat, and you're starting to feel crappy in the gym. And if you don't get through that little phase, that's when the real magic happens. That's when you get to that gnarly, you know, look that we all talk about, the eye test. All those people that pass the eye test, if you went and talked to them, they hated their body in prep.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like well, it's a couple phases. You can call it like the skinny fat stage,
Hmm.
or when you're really flat and you feel like you've lost a ton of muscle, and that's when I do find benefits to using refeeds because I think it helps people psychologically as well. Um, and also it can help them get used to having a little bit more carbs too, right? Which will end up helping in the filling out process. But the amount of carbs we would use in a refeed during that time is still not drastic, and it's not going to be enough to really like fill you out and make you pop, right? Because if we go to that level with it, then we're going to be leaving some fat loss on the table at that point too. And yeah, it can be difficult, right? And especially for earlier competitors that haven't competed a ton, it can feel like that. And especially, I think for competitors that haven't competed a lot, it can feel like that. And for competitors that had a really good structured off season and feel like they put on a bunch of muscle, And then when they get to that phase, they feel like it's not there anymore. But it is still there. It is still there. Unless your coach is running you, 3 hours of cardio and no carbs and no fats and protein only for 2 months at a time, then, maybe that
Yeah.
is the case.
And this is where I think as a coach, psychology plays a big part. Like sometimes it's a lot of talking through just the mental inner working of getting through these like the 4 week out, 3 week out phase. I like to tell my clients like feelings don't equate to facts because it's so easy to wake up and just, oh, I feel tiny. I feel like I've lost all my muscle, but like realizing that doesn't mean it's a fact, doesn't mean it's the stone cold truth, but yeah, you just got to look worse before you can look better. Just remember that.
Mhm. Yep,
100%.
absolutely.
All right, we got maybe a few more minutes. You guys got any like quick fire ones?
Let's
Let's see.
see.
Quick fire.
I got a pretty quick one. In our
Okay.
professional opinions, how long is a sustainable prep duration? Well, let's talk about doing like multiple shows.
Man, that
Maybe,
is, I mean, it's impossible for me to answer
yeah.
because
Right.
I literally had Lana in prep for 14, 15 months, and she went from amateur to pro to Olympian and came out of it very healthy. So, like,
Hmm.
it just handles, we did 13, 14 shows in a year. But here's what I'll say by the end of it, she was not in prep anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, we
it's
were doing 250 carbs a day, 30 minutes of cardio 5 days a week, and she was stage weight.
yeah,
Now, that can still be suffering, but she was thriving. Her and her husband were both competitors, and I think that helped. Like, so what's your exterior life like? But if it's your lifestyle, I mean, Lexi, you came out of prep, what, 3, 4 weeks ago for North Americans? What's your lifestyle like? Are you binge drinking and up 30 pounds?
No, no. I'm in fact,
Boo.
lame.
oh, I
So
know.
boring.
Yeah, you can still recognize me. You can still see the lines. No, I
You're
mean,
not having a raves at your new condo?
not yet. No. No, but I think this is a very hard question to answer because
Yeah.
with a lot of our competitors, we may have to grind into that first show. I mean, I think for every competitor going into that first show of the season, you do have to push pretty hard. And that is technically like, yeah, I would say that's prep. And then it's like you compete. And then for a lot of competitors, as long as they're not binge drinking or binge eating post show, like can walk their food up pretty high, maintain that level of leanness going into the next show. In fact, I have a client right now and she competed about a month ago. Her food is like double what it was, and her weight is the same. And so we decided we're going to probably jump into a show here in the next like 2 weeks that's in her backyard. So it's like, do you really consider that prep though, if she's been eating
Right.
that food, right? So that's where the question is kind of tricky.
To me, it's when you start to suffer mentally. Food noise is out there because look, if you're on prep, you still aren't going out and eating desserts. You're still not doing any of that stuff, right? When food noise gets too high, that it's driving you crazy. And if that's one of the people, I think that's kind of a point you need to consider kind of pulling out. And that's normally competitors earlier on in their career. And then when the physique starts to lose pop, I do think you can while bikini leanness, people think it's like this crazy, crazy lean. It's not like it's an unsustainable amount of leanness for most people to live with and to carry. Uh, but eventually, when you're that lean for that long, you will end up losing some of that pop. And when that starts to happen, you can take a break, you can take time off, but it's not going to necessarily be enough to get that back. It's just not. And if another thing I'll say too is if you end up metabolism ramps up too fast, and that we've all experienced that with athletes where metabolism starts almost like a runaway freight train. That's not something that can just be fixed in a few weeks for a lot of people. You can slowly walk food up. They don't get the weight really doesn't change, but they will end up starting to lose a little bit of that pop to the physique along with that. And that's a difficult um, thing to do as a coach too is because we can't always account for that sort of thing. Some people we have to push hard to get into shows, and then when we are there, their body's like, okay, now we're going to kick into overdrive, right? And uh, and then we start losing that pop, and because like I say, it's not a conditioning contest, it's a bodybuilding contest, right?
Yeah. Well, that this kind of maybe we can end on this one. This kind of feeds into a question I got. What is this person asked? What is the hardest part about the first week post show for clients or for just a competitor?
I think it's
The growing
so
spot.
my first memory of my first show was I did not have a plan after. I did not have a focus. I was so focused on doing my first bodybuilding show that like I could only relate it to what it felt like being a baseball player. When my season would end, I felt lost. I
Hmm.
didn't know what I was going to do with my day because I wasn't going to practice for 3 hours. I didn't have to be at study hall. I didn't have to be at the weight room. It was almost like the structure of baseball created the structure of my college experience. And when the season would end, which was late in the spring, so there was only like, a month of college left. I remember that last month of college, I just felt lost. And so after my first bodybuilding show, I did the show, I won my class, but I had not considered another show. I had not considered the next goal. And I just remember going to the gym on Monday and going, what am I doing today?
Hmm.
Like I didn't have a purpose to lift. And I ended up playing basketball for half an hour. I was like, I'm just gonna, and I went to Disney World and I just started doing things that I hadn't done. But I definitely, and I talked about it quite a bit, called it the post-show blues.
Yeah,
I
for a
think
lot
it's
of
not
people.
having that carrot on the end of the stick anymore. That's the hardest part. All that focus, all that direction, everything you put into it is not it's not there anymore. And trying to stick to a reverse after that is still going to be tough.
And this
Um,
is why I always say you cannot start a reverse diet after your show. If you don't reverse before the show, diet breaks. If you don't, I'm sorry. It's just the likelihood of success goes from like low to fucking damn near impossible.
Yeah, and for some people too, they're just going to struggle with that, right? Because, depending on their personality and their relationship with food and
This
kind of
is
what they've done in the past, it's when they
this is
don't
why
you
I
don't have
love to
that
tell
show.
athletes you should always do two shows
Yep.
because the first show it's just about getting to it and getting it done. You're going to be anxious because you don't know how the show's going to run, the expediting, you haven't put on the tan before, you haven't been to check-ins before, you have all the stuff that feels so kind of stressful. The second show goes out the window. 2, 3, 4 weeks later, it's just a much more relaxing experience. You can usually bring the food up, and in that time, you can set some goals. So one of the things I almost always do now is set the next goal before the season's over. Okay, next summer we're doing universe if they're a masters competitor, let's do, or hey, you live in the DC area, next year let's come win the Ben Weeder, or they live in California, what's a show that's important to you? But so at least they have something in their brain that's like they don't have to be perfect anymore, but they need to be like, okay, I have a purpose for training, I have a purpose for eating. um but yeah, that it's
I think the
Yeah.
goals are huge, and I like to if it's a client we know that they're wrapping up their season after the show, there's not another show on the horizon. I like to usually have a call, like just a call with them, talk a little bit about like what are your goals for this improvement season, and I'm not just talking like show goals and bodybuilding goals and what they want to do next year in terms of shows. Like take advantage of your improvement season being a time where you can improve in literally every facet of your life, not just bodybuilding, maybe relationships, maybe hobbies, maybe career goals, right? I think it's really good to kind of set those multifaceted goals because most athletes need some sort of goal to work towards. I think
Yeah.
also another thing that can be really hard for athletes for that, especially that first week post show, is if you really hyped up your show and your friends and your family knew all about it. Sometimes friends and family can be the people that make that first week the hardest because they want to go out, they want to celebrate. They think, oh, she competed. Okay, now let's take her out to eat, let's celebrate. Or they'll bring you all this food, not really realizing that that's not how it works. You can't just compete and then quote unquote go back to normal, right, and eat whatever your little heart desires. So I think that can be a struggle for some athletes too, is when their friends and family don't really understand that it's not just this switch that flips in the opposite direction. Like they can't just eat everything in sight now. But as an athlete, you also have to take accountability to explain that to friends and family because they don't know what they don't know, and a lot of times they're not doing that to deteriorate or to take you away from your goals. They just truthfully don't know that after a show, you can't just eat anything and everything in sight, right? So you have to do your due diligence as an athlete to make sure that those expectations are set before your show so you don't have that issue.
Mhm.
That's coaching. I hate to say it, but like, you know, like coaching has evolved. My first competition, my coach didn't do anything wrong. There was no such thing as reverse dieting. He actually invented the damn term later on. You know, I worked with him in 2007. I think by 2010, 11, he was, you know, doing reverse dieting, but I didn't have a plan for Monday. And that was the era of, oh, you're really anabolic post show. Well, we know that's not true anymore. But so as a coach now, I think all of us don't consider it a successful prep if they develop eating disorders, their hair is falling out, and they hate the sport. No, it's a successful prep when you get the goal you're after and you leave the athlete in a better place than you found them. If you leave an athlete in a worse place than you found them, but they won a trophy, shame on you. You failed.
Yep.
Amen.
All right, I think we can end it there. Clip it.
Yeah, I think that seals the deal. I think that was a good one. I like doing Q&As because I feel like it just kind of allows us
Yeah,
to.
and I still have a little like I still have half. I didn't even get to half of them.
Oh yeah, I have a lot too. I mean, we could always do a part 2, you know, in next week. We'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah, we could do a part 2 next week because we'll be kind of ready to we'll be getting ready to go.
the San Diego.
San Diego.
Get your tickets if you want to come train and pose and learn and hang.
This is, yeah, I've been telling
Watch
people,
Evan eat a giant box of cookies.
I've been telling people this is definitely one of like the rare chances to attend an event with us on the West Coast because it's not
Yeah.
easy for all of us to get out there. So a lot of our events are usually in Florida, and I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, come out west." So this is probably one of the rare occasions that you will get the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. I'm actually looking forward to it. It's a smaller footprint, but it's just going to be so intimate. I can't wait.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Great. Thanks for
Thanks
listening,
for listening.
guys.